Sups up everyone, welcome back to another video. It's been a little while, work has been very busy, life has just been going on and on and on. And don't worry, I haven't forgot about you guys, it's just that there hasn't been anything that's urgently needing a video to be made for. But today I would like to talk about 4.1, 4.2, and maybe even 4.3, 4.4. Because I've been looking at Genshin Impact, their sales chart, and also the arrival of the Hydro Archon focalors is soon, very soon, maybe in 4.2. Some people say 4.3, but I don't think Hoyoverse is going to wait that long, so we're going to go through each patch analysis of characters' arrival, the potential for them to change the meta, and of course, characters such as Navia, who is likely going to have to find a way to revitalize Geo. So it's not just about changing metas and stuff and breaking tradition. Sometimes it's to lift up much needed units or playstyles back into the spotlight. But we have to talk about Nuvle and Risley, I think. I don't know how to pronounce both of their names properly. It's the Hydro Judge dude, and then I think the other one was the Cryo Prison Guard or something. But anyways, let's talk about the Hydro Judge, Nuvle. Truth be told, my biggest concern for characters like Nuvle is that they're too popular. They're way too popular, and it might end up in a situation where Hoyoverse knows they're gonna sell regardless because people are so hyped for them. You're guaranteed going to pull for them even if they heal the enemies, like people say all the time, right? So Hoyoverse knows once a character reaches a certain level of popularity, there's no need to give them any more power. If you look back in time, there's plenty of characters who just came out of nowhere and ended up being very strong, like Yelan, Kazuha, Nilou, and these characters really had very little introduction and they just kind of plopped right into existence, bam, super strong. And what ended up happening is a lot of people ended up skipping them because they're like, who is this character? I don't know who they are, I don't care, because you're not attached to them yet, right? So then you skip them and end up regretting it. Oh, I wish I pulled just one Nilou. Oh, why didn't I get Kazuha? Wow, I can't believe Yelan is so broken. Why didn't I pull Yelan? That's the route that Hoyoverse goes. It's the FOMO route. But characters that have multiple appearances throughout the story, you're super attached to them, or they know they're super popular. The crowd has been like, oh my god, I'm going to pull for this character when it comes out 100%. I love this character so much. And characters like these, Hoyoverse has oftentimes made them relatively weak or comparatively weaker because Hoyoverse knows, well, they're going to sell anyways. We don't need to give them any more power. And so they can keep the game in balance. A good example of these characters are Yaimiko, Sino, and Dia are all examples of characters that were vastly popular and ended up being disappointments on release. Yamiko nowadays has climbed very far from the first time she was released due to Dendro being very supportive of how Electro operates within the current meta system, but Sino and Dia are still on the bench waiting for their opportunity. Not to mention there are characters like Eula and certain Geo characters that are still so far back in the line you can't even see them. So now let's bring the topic back to Nuvle and Fontaine. Why am I telling you guys all this? It's because Nuvle is an incredibly popular character. He's been slightly teased since pre 4.0 and people have been just losing their minds about him, which leads me to worry that Hoyoverse sees his popularity and the guarantee that he's going to end up selling, so they're going to tone him back down a little bit, make sure his constellations have an easy bait for C1, C2, make his weapon kind of good, and then just release him as is. And I'm not complaining. If he comes out and he's anywhere nearly as good as, let's say, Ayato, I think he's going to be a decent character. But sometimes it feels like decent doesn't really hit the spot anymore for most people, and that's why most are waiting for focalors. But before we jump to focalors, there's the character Risley, the Cryo dude. I really like his design and I really enjoyed how little he was teased and how not popular he is. Don't call me crazy. I'm sure there's a huge fan base for this dude, but I just don't think he's as popular as someone like Nuvle. So I wouldn't really say it's going to be a surprise if he ends up being slightly better, just like how Nilou was not as popular as Sino but ended up completely crushing him when it comes to meta and just general Abyss performance. At the same time, a character like Alhaitham, which most people didn't really talk about, and suddenly he came out and people suddenly remembered, oh my god, yeah, there was Alhaitham that was coming out in the 3.0 era, and he ended up crushing things as well. I'm not saying Alhaitham wasn't popular, I'm not saying Nilou wasn't popular, I'm simply saying they weren't as popular as someone, let's say, Dia or Sino, and the community wasn't going absolutely batshit crazy for them. All characters that Hoyoverse release has proper fan bases, but not all of them have ones that will pull for them and claiming they'll pull for them even if they heal the enemy. Now, the other two characters that are coming back, rerunning in 4.1, I mean, looking at how things are, it's about time either Venti comes back or Raiden Shogun. This is not really up for debate. I think one of them is coming back for sure. If Hoyoverse wants to make more money, slap Raiden in there. if they don't care and they think Nuvle and Risley is going to make them good enough money and they're going to really bank on 4.2 Focalors to kind of break people's banks. What they can end up doing is maybe put Venti with Nuvle and then put someone like Raiden Shogun on the patch of Focalors, which I don't know if that's a good idea. I think if Hoyoverse is really wanting to make good bank, they should put Raiden Shogun in 4.1 because 4.1 is going to land around Genshin Impact's 3rd year anniversary, which there's a completely separate video in of itself about Genshin anniversaries. But let's just talk about the potential for Hoyoverse to make some good money during the anniversary patch. Wouldn't you want it to look good, right? So makes sense if Raiden Shogun comes back alongside Nuvle, Risley in 4.1. The last character, I don't know who they're going to slap in there, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be most of the Geo characters like Ito, Albedo, even though some of them are due for reruns. I do think they're likely going to save those characters for the patch that Navia comes out, which we can talk a little bit about that later in the video. Moving on to patch 4.2. So let's say if Venti didn't make it into 4.1, there's a good chance Venti might be in 4.2. If Venti made it into 4.1, then that means Raiden Shogun is probably going to be in 4.2. But all eyes on Focalors. I'm not sure if Hoyoverse is going to even have another limited 5-star character coming out in that patch to compete against Focalors. I do anticipate most people are going to go to maybe C2 or maybe C0 R1 for Focalors. She is the Hydro Archon, and at this point I don't think it's a stretch to say that the Archons of every region have been the best performing units for the entire year. And once people understand that, combined with the character having pretty good design, I think it's safe to say that 4.2 likely would just feature one limited 5-star being Focalors. And to put the icing on the cake, she's the first limited 5-star female character we've had in like a year since Nahida, right? So yeah, I'm serious. Look back all you want. There's not a single limited 5-star character that was female. Dia was the only one and she was standard. So I'm just saying, it's been a while, people. And you can't blame people for getting excited. And Hoyoverse knows best what people want, and cucking them is the best way to eventually get them to dump everything. And I'm telling you guys, like, get ready for Focalors banner. If Focalors banner does not break some sort of record, it is evident that Hoyoverse needs to go back to the drawing board because their methods are obviously not working. Currently, they're still able to sustain more players coming in versus more players going out. So it's a net positive for them and they don't care very much. But 4.2, it's a very important patch. Moving on to 4.3. 4.3, it's an interesting one. We really don't know what Hoyoverse has planned for it, but there's a chance they might slap Navia there, or they might release the little girl that was sitting next to Risley, but something telling me that she does feel like a 4-star. These tiny characters oftentimes have problems with Hoyoverse selling them as 5-stars. For some reason, Klee is the only one that comes to mind, limited time apart from Nahida, but there's nothing riding off that character being a 5-star. I'm just saying 4.3 could give us a twist, or it could be Chlorinde marching in combination with Navia, right? If Hoyoverse lets the floodgates open, be like, you want female 5-star limited characters? Here you go. More and more and more. Strike the iron when it's hot. But like I said prior, if Navia is coming out, there's a good chance that someone like Albedo or Ito is accompanying her during that patch. So if Chlorinde is on one side and Navia is on the other side, expect maybe some Electro units along with some Geo units coming out, and that's going to be like a mono hyper carry patch of Electro and Geo. Who knows, Chlorinde might also play into Dendro very well. So your guess is as good as mine. Following that, 4.4, it's going to be Chinese New Year, I believe, somewhere around there. And if that's what's going to happen, there's a good chance maybe someone like Zhao, Hu Tao, Shenhe, Ganyu are going to make their reruns during that time. Even Yaland isn't safe because look what they did last year and how much money they made. So all in all, people, take a good hard look at your Primo gems and be very, very careful with who and what you spend your gems on. Name's Walrus. Thank you guys so much for watching. And until the next one, urge you all to stay safe. Peace, bye.